In this video, I'm gonna tell you guys how to increase your reaction time in Free Fire. In this video, I'm gonna tell you guys how to increase your reaction time in Free Fire. But before that, first I'll tell you guys what reaction time is meant by reaction time. So guys, what reaction time basically means is the amount of time taken by a person to respond to a situation. For example, just imagine that an enemy is going to fire at you. If your reaction time is good, you will be able to quickly react by placing a glue wall to block the enemy's attack. But if your reaction time is not that good, your enemy might fire and knock you down before you place the glue wall. So now you guys can see how important it is to improve your reaction time. So now I'll tell you guys 5 tips on how to increase your reaction time in Free Fire. Tip number 1, sound. Paying attention to the in-game sounds is very important when it comes to improving the reaction time. So first go to your in-game settings, next press the sound option. After that, make sure to increase the sound effects option to 100. The music option and the kill streak option are not that useful, so you can lower those sound options to the amount you want. The voice option is also very important, so make sure to increase that also to 100. If the sounds are too high for you, you can decrease them, but make sure to decrease them to a volume that you can hear well. Another thing is always try to wear a headphone or an earphone when playing. This way you will be able to know where your enemy is going to rush you, since you will be able to hear the enemy's footsteps and gun sounds. But guys, if you don't have headphones or earphones, make sure to increase the volume in your phone and try to play in a place which is not noisy. So now let's get on to tip number 2, in-game indicators. So guys, when you're playing, make sure to pay attention to the minimap. This way, if an enemy is firing, the enemy's location will be revealed in the minimap. And not only that, you will also be able to see enemy vehicles that are coming near you. Another in-game indicator is this red color indicator, which shows the side that you're getting fired from. If you pay attention to this red color indicator, you will be able to quickly react by placing a glue wall to defend yourself. So now let's get on to tip number 3, focus. So guys, if you guys keep multitasking while playing the game, you won't be able to focus well on the game. For example, if you're playing while watching the TV, most of the time you won't be able to focus well and make good decisions in the game. So try to stop doing such things when playing and focus on the game. So now let's get on to tip number 4, custom HUD. Having a good muscle memory with the buttons in your custom HUD is very important when it comes to reacting fast. As you guys know, most of the time we don't look at the buttons while playing. That's because we have a good muscle memory on where the buttons are. But if you keep changing the custom HUD, you might press on wrong buttons or free space. So guys, remember to not change the custom HUD every time. So now let's move on to tip number 5, practice. One of the best ways to improve your reaction time is by practice. In my opinion, the 2 best ways to practice is by playing solo versus squad matches and unlimited ammo custom room matches. In this video, I'm going to tell you guys 8 rotation rockets and mistakes that players do and how to fix them. So without wasting any more time, first let's start with mistake number 1, not knowing when to use the rotation drag. So guys, as I know, there are 3 types of rotation drag headshot tricks. Number 1, normal rotation drag, and number 2, J-shaped rotation drag, and at last number 3, opposite rotation drag. So one thing that most players do wrong is that they don't know when to use these tricks. The normal rotation drag and the J-shaped rotation drag works best in short range, but if you use them in mid-range and long range, most of the time your bullets will recoil. But guys, the opposite rotation drag works best in long range and mid-range, but it can also be used in short range. Now let's move on to mistake number 2, wrong crosshair placement. When using the normal rotation drag and the J-shaped rotation drag, always remember to use the wide crosshair method. If you use the red crosshair method while using them, most of the time your bullets will start to recoil. But guys, when you use the opposite rotation drag headshot trick, you can use both red and white crosshair methods. But in short range, use the wide crosshair method, and in long range and mid range, you can use both white and red crosshair methods. Mistake number 3, wrong sensitivity. It's very important to have a high sensitivity when doing headshots, but if you have a very low sensitivity, most of the time you won't be able to get headshots. So guys, always remember to keep your general sensitivity at 100. Mistake number 4, wrong fire button position. I have seen some players keep the fire button in the bottom like this. When you keep it in the bottom, you won't have enough space to rotate the fire button. So guys, make sure to leave a bit of space when placing the fire button. Mistake number 5, drag speed. If you drag slowly when using the rotation drag headshot trick, most of the time your bullets will get stuck in the enemy's body. So when you use the rotation drag headshot trick in short range, always remember to drag the fire button fast and smoothly. Mistake number 6, not using the quick weapon switch button. When you use the gun switch option, most of the time you won't be able to perfectly do the rotation drag method. So make sure to use the quick weapon switch button and keep it on the left side. When you do this, your switching speed and your movement speed will also increase, and not only that, your shots will also look more professional. Mistake number 7, not using super jump. This is not a big mistake because you can use rotation drag without the super jump, but it's better if you use it. The reason that I say this is because when you take a jump like this and drag the fire button when your feet is about to hit the ground, it will give a bit of force to your drag. So guys, now let's move on to mistake number 8, wrong drag technique. I have seen some players fully rotate the fire button like this, and that's wrong guys. If you fully rotate the fire button like this, your bullets will recoil. So check out this video if you guys want to learn how to correctly rotate all 3 rotation drag headshot tricks that I mentioned before. So I'll see you guys soon with your video. Until then, take it easy fam. Peace. In this video, I'm going to tell you guys some of the best tips and tricks on how to confuse and defeat one-tap players in Free Fire. So without wasting any more time, first let's start with tip number 1. So guys, before defeating a one-tap player, first you need to know how to avoid getting hit with one-tap headshots. So guys, there are several positions that someone could easily get hit with one-tap headshots. Likewise, there are several other positions where there is a very low chance of getting hit by one-tap headshots. So first let's see what are the positions that you could easily get hit by one-tap headshots. The first position is when your character is standing in a still position. position. If an enemy is standing in a still position, it will be very easy to do a one tap on that enemy. So always try to move a lot in matches. The second and the third position where you could easily get hit by a one tap headshot are when you are running straight towards the enemy or when you are running straight backwards from the enemy. So here are some ways to lower the chance of getting hit by one tap headshots. The first way is to do the zigzag run. Try to run in a zigzag way instead of running straight. The second way is to run either towards left or right instead of running straight into the enemy. So guys, now let's move on to tip number 2. Tip number 2 is to confuse your enemy. When you confuse your enemy, it will be very hard for them to aim for one tap headshot. One of the best ways to confuse your enemy is by changing your location. Instead of staying in the same place after firing, try to fire and change your location several times. One way to practice this is by running and jumping from house to house like this. This way you can confuse your enemy and take him down. Another way to confuse your enemy is by dodging your enemy. You can practice this by dodging enemy bullets in the training ground by running from place to place. If you practice this well, you could lower the chances of getting hit by one tap headshots in matches. The next way is to be unpredictable. So guys, I have seen a lot of players that always rush from the same side. This way your enemy could be able to predict the side that you will rush them in the other rounds. So try to avoid rushing from the same side every time. Another way that you can confuse your enemy is by placing multiple glue walls. This way your enemy could get confused when trying to find out your real position. So guys, now let's get on to tip number 3. To confuse and defeat a one tap player, you will mostly need both defense and movement speed. So the first character on this character combination is Wukong. Since it is hard to headshot Wukong's bush, the enemy will have a hard time when trying to do one tap. The second character on this list is Kelly, since she provides us with the 6% increase in movement speed. The third character on this list is Joseph, because he increases the movement speed by 20% when taking damage. And the last character on this list is Moko, because she will help us to track the enemy.